going to look at it. So foul there on Indiana, on Hull there. But then that is a technical.
That is a technical. Dead ball, contact technical.
It's a little surprising to see so many of these happen in one game because...
Oh, and I don't like the way Lexie Hull...
Remember that play the last time the Fever and Lynx faced off? When Kayla McBride's elbow caught Lexie Hull in the face, and somehow Hull ended up getting hit with the penalty. Well, in Indiana's huge win over Minnesota, Hull got her revenge. And this time, it was McBride left on the wrong end of the highlight. The crowd erupted, and the moment felt bigger than just a play. It was personal redemption and a snapshot of the Fever's toughness. This wasn't just about a single sequence. It was a statement, proof of Indiana's grit, and a perfect symbol of their late-season surge as they fight their way into the playoffs. Show some love for Lexie down in the comments. Let's go Fever!
Final score, Fever 83, Lynx 72. Indiana ends the regular season with an exclamation point. Fever have won 3 in a row as they enter the playoff.
How does a team survive when nearly half its rotation disappears? The Indiana Fever have been forced to find out the hard way. One by one, names piled onto the injury report. Caitlin Clark out with a groin strain, Sophie Cunningham shelved by an MCL tear, Sydney Colson sidelined with a torn ACL, Chloe BBY's knee giving out, and Ari McDonald fracturing her foot. That list alone could pass for a strong starting lineup. Instead, all of them were suddenly stuck on the bench in street clothes. Put those absences together, and you're staring at one of the thinnest rosters in the league, something no amount of preseason preparation.
I know a lot of people will talk about Nafisa not playing, but I think they're really good with or without her. You know, they're just a really great basketball team. So I think it was a big win for us because they set the bar high standard-wise. We know what to expect when it comes to Minnesota Lynx, and so I think going into the playoffs, it was big for us because being able to know guarding Courtney Williams, knowing that her thing is a pull-up, knowing that now instead of not knowing that, it's big for us because we give ourselves a chance, and if they are the standard, we get to see where we are.
Then came the announcement: Caitlin Clark's season was officially over. What started as a nagging groin issue became a permanent spot on the injury list. Her rookie year was supposed to fast-track the Fever back into national relevance. Instead, it ended not with a playoff debut, but with a press release. That kind of news can gut a team, especially one that leans so heavily on her energy during the toughest stretches. The impact wasn't just felt in the locker room, but across a fan base stretching from Indiana to Iowa. Clark wasn't just selling tickets, she was the heartbeat of the season. Losing her felt like the clearest signal yet that Indiana's playoff dreams might vanish just as quickly as they'd appeared. But with Clark relegated to the bench as a cheerleader, someone had to fill the void. That someone was Kelsey Mitchell. And she didn't just pick up the slack, she became the centerpiece. Mitchell evolved into the most productive scorer in franchise history, surpassing even Tamika catching single-season marks. For perspective, she averaged over 20 points per game night after night, while also taking on ball-handling duties, absorbing double teams, and sitting at the top of every scouting report. Through it all, she delivered the offensive firepower that kept Indiana's playoff hopes alive at a time when they easily could have flatlined. Boston carried the other half of that burden. Averaging a steady 15 points and grabbing over 8 boards a game across her last 10 outings, she gave Indiana exactly what it needed most: reliability. In a season defined by injuries and shifting lineups, Boston became the anchor. Her strength against bigger forwards, her relentlessness on the glass, and her ability to extend possessions served as the Fever's insurance policy. No matter how messy rotations got, she was the stabilizer in the middle. Along the way, she set a new franchise record for single-season rebounds, a testament to both her consistency and her impact. Without that steadiness, Indiana's defense could have completely unraveled.
Only 8 teams have ever done that. 7 of them went on to win the title. As Boston gets free and lays it in.
She will be on my first team.
Boston in the paint, sneaks through 2 and lays it in.
So after all that, could this team really still dream of a playoff berth? By any logic, the answer should have been no. But that's not where the story ended. Instead of folding, Indiana turned every setback into fuel. The frustration, the rotating lineups, even the whistles that didn't go their way, it all became motivation. Players once viewed as role fillers became nightly contributors. Hardship signings chipped in double-digit scoring. Bench players seized bigger minutes with pride. The turning point was obvious. The Fever stopped treating injuries as a death sentence and started using them as a rallying cry. That shift didn't just change their play, it reshaped how fans saw them. So when Minnesota came to town, it wasn't about who was missing anymore. What mattered was resilience, and it set the stage for one of the most emotional wins of the season. Why did this victory feel bigger than just another game? Because it was. Indiana wasn't simply running out the clock on the regular season. They were staring down a powerhouse sitting at the top of the standings, a team many called the gold standard of the league. This wasn't about pride, it was about survival in the playoff picture. And the Fever didn't flinch. They entered the night already postseason bound, but with an opportunity to climb the ladder. Depending on other results, the 6th seed was on the line. To a casual fan, that may not sound monumental. But for Indiana, it meant everything. A shot at more favorable matchups, a chance to make real playoff noise, and validation that they belong at the grown-ups table.
Before the playoffs start Sunday tonight, it's regular season game 44 of 44 for the Fever as they host the WNBA's best team in 2025, the Minnesota Lynx.
What makes this surge even more remarkable is where the Fever were just a few weeks ago. They had dropped 4 of 5, momentum had vanished, fan excitement was cooling, and the national conversation was shifting back to whether Caitlin Clark's absence had stripped away any real chance at progress. Most teams in that position fold. Indiana did the opposite. They flipped the switch and rattled off 3 straight grinded-out wins, each one proof of a roster redefining itself on the fly. The third came against Minnesota, and it carried extra weight because it was the kind of matchup almost no one believed the Fever could win at this stage.
It'll be Alana Smith jumping it up against Aaliyah Boston. The ball is tipped, and it's time to hoop at Indy.
A 10-0 run to start this game for Indiana, and Minnesota wants a timeout.
Powers up top, tees it up, 3, it's good! Energy!
Kicks it out, Powers. You bet! Back-to-back threes from Ariel Powers.
The Fever double up the Lynx in the first quarter. It's Indiana 28, Minnesota 14.
It was the way Indiana controlled the game that silenced the doubts. From the opening tip, the Fever looked organized, confident, and ready to execute. A 10-0 burst in the first quarter sent the message. They weren't just here to compete, they were setting the pace. By halftime, the lead had stretched into double digits, and Indiana never once looked in danger of letting it slip. Minnesota searched for answers, but cold shooting combined with relentless Fever defense turned possessions into empty trips. The Lynx hit just 2 of their 23-point attempts, and with every miss, the feeling grew stronger. This was Indiana's night.
Indiana is 4 for 4 from 3-point range. Mitchell connects. On a three, Sims leaning jumper is good.
Kelsey driving left, puts it in off the backboard.
Will to it for the first half. Indiana shoots 58% from the floor.
A big part of the story came from unlikely contributors. Odyssey Sims, signed on a hardship deal not long ago, stepped in and poured in 15 points. That's more than filling a roster spot. That's a veteran coming off the bench determined to prove she still belongs on this stage. Then there was Aerial Powers. With Minnesota threatening to close the gap in the second half, she drilled back-to-back threes that ripped momentum away from the Lynx and handed it right back to Indiana. It wasn't just 6 points, it was a gut punch, the kind of swing that made it clear this night belonged to the Fever.
Mitchell, open three, is good. Lexie Mitchell is a hooper.
Passes Dantas, left corner three, bullseye. Shot clock, Boston left block, bakes it in.
Natasha Howard deserves just as much credit as anyone for Indiana's dominance. Every minute she was on the floor, her impact was felt. Whether it was cleaning the glass, switching seamlessly on defense, or knocking down shots when possession stalled. She filled the gaps that open up when half a roster is sidelined. And then there was the bench, the same group many dismissed earlier in the season, acting as the glue that kept the energy steady. Rather than being intimidated by Minnesota's reputation, Indiana looked like the deeper, more balanced team. The numbers tell the story. The Fever now sit at 24-20, marking their first winning season since 2015. That's 9 years of false starts, rebuilds that never stuck, and opportunities that slipped away. This milestone isn't about celebrating mediocrity, it's about acknowledging a cultural reset. The players feel it, the coaching staff feels it, and the fans who kept showing up in Indianapolis all year long know they're finally watching a foundation.
Minnesota. Just weeks earlier, she'd been on the receiving end of Kayla McBride's elbow to the face. Blood on the court, confusion in the arena, and then the unbelievable twist. Refs hit Hull with the technical instead of punishing McBride. The whole scene turned a tough night into an outrageous one. Fans didn't just feel angry for her, they felt insulted on her behalf. It became another piece of evidence about the perception that Indiana doesn't get fair treatment.
Here's Mitchell. I think that's a 2. Doesn't go. And now it's McBride getting Hull. That one might be a problem. Indiana just taking shots to the face.
Presence mattered throughout the game. She stayed glued to Minnesota's backcourt, forcing contested looks, deflecting passes, and disrupting their rhythm. Stat sheets don't always capture defensive grind, but anybody who watched could see that she was making it difficult for the Lynx guards to breathe. She turned those possessions into empty trips and helped limit the league's top team to one of their worst offensive outings of the year. That was just as important as the crossover moment, even if it didn't get the same viral treatment. What makes Hull's story resonate is that it mirrors Indiana itself. Written off, underestimated, and hit with calls that made no sense, yet somehow finding a way to shine when it mattered most. The Fever keep being cast as the underdog, and just like Hull, they don't crawl into the background. They rise when the pressure stacks against them. Her highlight against McBride symbolized that spirit better than anything else could have. Lexie Hull's crossover wasn't just a clip to laugh at. It summed up how Indiana fought through every injury, every bad whistle, and every doubt that piled up this season. That single play captured the grit that carried them to their first winning record in nearly a decade. Now the Fever enter the playoffs with momentum, fans buzzing, and the promise of Clark's return shaping the future. This is where support matters most. Keep showing up, keep fueling that energy, because what we just saw isn't a fluke. It feels like the first real step in Indiana's climb back to relevance. Let's show some love for Lexie down in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.